Thank you so much for checking out this episode, as I'm going to be getting into what is neurodivergence with someone who I am connected with in Toastmasters. She is across the pond in the UK. Just bear in mind, I'm a podcaster, video editor, podcast editor behind a mic. My expertise is audio video, not medical or mental health. If you have any questions about anything you hear on this episode today, reach out, ask, talk to your doctor, and seek opinions of the medical health field, and take everything with a grain of salt. Here, do your own research, do your own thinking, and with that being said, let's get on with the episode.
It can be good, but when it comes to focus, it is a challenge. And sometimes I might be reading something, and then my brain will be like, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And a lot of times I prefer to have things printed out. So I'll have things printed out on coloured paper, because that helps me focus so much more than if it was on, say, white paper. So there's little things that can help make it a lot easier. And I think one of the things that I've been doing with my maths is...
Hey there, tech enthusiasts. Welcome to Tech Time with Sweet Tea, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of technology and how it can either serve you or, well, not serve you. Here is your host, Sweet Tea, and he's on a mission to help you harness the power of tech in your life. Join him as he chats with people about their tech journeys. From the latest gadgets to digital dilemmas, we'll explore it all. So grab your favorite device, hit that play button, and let's keep it real in the world of tech. Tech Time with Sweet Tea is here to help you stay plugged in and empowered. Let's get started.
Hello, keeping it real, podcast listeners, and watching if you're watching on YouTube and elsewhere that's available on video. I'm back with you here, and for this month, as you know, I release one episode a month, and this time I'm talking across the pond. Natalie, I welcome Natalie from one of my Toastmasters club, another connection I have through Toastmasters, and here she is now. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Tommy. Good morning.
It's morning across the pond, and it's around 11 o'clock at night here. So she's living a little bit of the future there, futuristic technology. So what are you excited about today on this Monday morning in the UK, Natalie?
Well, it's a bank holiday, because I know in the US you don't have bank holidays as half as much as us guys over the pond. So I haven't got work, so I can be nice and chilled today. But then I've got uni tomorrow, so can't be too lazy today.
Get some basic questions out of the way, some easy questions that just good to know for listeners' audience. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Natalie Thomas, and I live on the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom. So for your American audience, if you imagine the UK mainland, there's a nice little island just off in the Solent. I live there. The Isle of Wight's got a population of around 140,000 people, and I live in a village of around 5,000 people. So in American standards, I live in the size of a shoebox, somewhere very little. I'm in my second year of my public health degree apprenticeship. So I'm doing my public health degree whilst working full time. I'm also a single parent. My daughter is asleep, which is awesome because I can get to do this. And I'm also a really active Toastmaster, where I've now just been re-elected as a division director in Founders District for my second year. I'm also a member of a club in District 50, hence why I know Tommy. There you go.
Yeah, and you utilize heavily on the technology side. You mentioned you're a heavy active Toastmaster. How's that going for you? Like, what have you done as a Toastmaster, and where have you done it?
Toastmasters journey has just been nuts. I rely on technology because I am a virtual Toastmaster, because as I've said to you, a lot of people, because all of the clubs are on the mainland, and being a single parent and having to rely on ferries, if I went to a club on the mainland what finished at 9 o'clock, I'd struggle to get home. I'd struggle for childcare. So my Toastmasters journey has been on Zoom Airways 99.99% of the time. Every now and again I've got to go on Teams, and I'm slowly getting better with using Teams for Toastmaster stuff. It's just strange. And then every now and again I'll go to a Toastmasters meeting that uses the WebEx forum, which is just, I'm a Zoom girl. I've always been a Zoom girl in the 4 years that I've been a Toastmaster. So I rely heavily on technology to be able to continue to be a remote leader as well. So
would you say that's the strangest of them all? Microsoft Teams, and I guess now Skype.
I've never done Skype when it comes to Toastmasters. I would say Teams, but I think where I use Teams at work, I've got better since I've used it more at work for using Toastmasters. But I think the problem that I have is just making sure it works on my tablet, because when I'm in a Toastmasters meeting, I prefer to stand up, much as I'm sat down right now, because I think it's one of those things that in the corporate world you sit down to present, but if I was in person, I'd be standing up to present. So why can't I stand up to present, even though I'm an onliner? So it's all good fun.
One of my clubs is 100% virtual, and it's just a matter of I put a webcam or a camera up on a tripod, and you can set it up, and you can. I've done it where I had a stand up speech and everything. I don't do that too often, but I should bust out the tripod more often now.
And I think it's like the thing, like say with Metro Quest, for example. So this is the club that I know you and Tommy. They have some epic hybrid meetings, and I remember it's now probably a good 2 years since they went hybrid, and it was those conversations, say with David Haney, kind of going, well, what tech should we use, what internet boosters should we use, and just all of those things to be able to connect those people that were in person, in allowing those other members that might be out of state or like me out of the country the chance to actually come together. So I think technology plays a huge part in like the virtual hybrid Toastmasters world.
I think without a doubt that technology, when you talk about the world, when just you go back 10 years ago, and we had to deal with the phones and long distance calling or air cards. My dad was overseas, and in order to call him, I wish we had iPhones or WhatsApp now, where it's as long as you have internet, it's free. You no need for an air card. But as we advance and we go further down through these years, we get more connected. And one of my questions is leading into one of the big conversations that I reach out to you about, leading into like the neurodivergent stuff and ADD. One of my questions that I had listed on my calendar or notes email when I emailed out is, you think, now again, no question we're connected, but I guess at the same time, we're connected, but you think technology is making us more connected or more isolated?
I would say both, because I think when it comes to connection, so my 9-year-old Gia is learning about South America in school, and I messaged a teacher kind of going, could I get her to have some interviews with a few of my Toastmaster friends. And she was like, yes, absolutely. I was like, game on. So I messaged my Toastmaster friend who lives in Peru, who's currently one of my area directors, who is moving on to be a remote PQD next year. He lives in Lima, Peru. I was able to go, okay, Gia, I've got you somebody who lives in Peru. Go and have a conversation. Did that over Zoom. And then one of my Toastmaster friends who lives in Toronto, who's from Trinidad, same principle, could use Zoom for Gia to have that conversation with some real people that have got that real life lived experience of living in that location. But I think on the flip side, when it comes to isolation, oh God, you can get so isolated with technology, because I think if you haven't got that new phone and you might have, say, an iPhone 11, when you kind of look at young people, you'll have that social isolation to go, we're the kids that have got the new stuff, whereas the other kids might have the older stuff. But then I look at it of reality and I kind of think, should young people aged, say, between 11 to 15, should they have 500 to 600 pound phones? No, they shouldn't, because half of the time they'll lose it, they'll break it, they'll be clumsy. I look at my 9-year-old and she's clumsy as anything, and I kind of think, why? But that's a societal thing, because I look back to when I was a teenager. I had my first phone when I was 16, yet my 9-year-old will probably have a phone within the next year. So I definitely think technology is amazing for some things, but equally bad in some others, because I don't know what it's like in the US with younger children, but I could be going around the county town of the Isle of Wight on a weekend, and I could see so many younger children, so I would say kids between 2 to 3, with an iPad in their face. And you kind of think we're going to have a generation of kids that'll have square eyes and they won't have the foggiest how to communicate. But then you kind of put it in that principle of when they've become parents, they're not going to have a clue how to communicate with their children because they've had a tablet and technology rammed in their face. Quite controversial, but you kind of think from that population perspective, technology is having a huge impact on a lot of people, and I kind of think we've got to do something before these technological children become parents, because of that lack of nurturing and conversation you would have with your kids when you haven't got technology there. So there you go.
Yeah, as continuing on, and what I heard you saying a lot there, and there's a lot to dive in there, and with as technology advances more and more, as I'm getting my cord situated, I have a lot of things going on. Like as we mentioned with technology, a lot of things going on, and I always I'd say use technology as a tool for good, and maybe not so much as for the not good. Use it for good. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, one thing I definitely heard you say in that last part, the kids today, when you give them an iPad or a phone at especially an early age, and they're learning how to communicate with their hands, with their fingers on a touch screen, but not this is fine. Like we're across the pond and we're talking side by side on a screen. It's fine, and we can kind of look at each other and talk and communicate and use kind of body language and everything to communicate otherwise too. But it's learning to communicate both ways. Use the technology to start to initiate to say, hey, let's go meet in person at the corner coffee house or something and continue this conversation. Let's have a actual real conversation too. So use both, the best of both worlds.
Completely. But I think in my scenario, when it comes to Toastmasters, I would have to have a little like playing in my garden to be able to continue the in-person conversation. Much as I pray one day, because like quite a few of my toasty friends have gone, are you going to go to the convention? I'm like, I wish I could afford it. But I think it is that it's all about relationship building. You can build some amazing relationships through technology, but I definitely agree with that. Don't be heavily reliant on it, because I think sometimes it can have those challenges. But I think technology has helped me a lot with my Toastmaster journey because of the world clock. I know that's just a general feature now on a lot of phones, tablets, internet, whatever. But if you go back to say 10, 15 years ago when we were probably both at school, might even be longer than that now, you wouldn't have this technology to go, okay, random place in the world, what time was it there for you? So I think in a way, from that global perspective, technology is bringing us a lot closer together, because we're able to go, okay, well, what time is it in Texas? Oh, it's this time. Okay, I need to be awake at that time to be able to talk to that person. So it definitely helps. But then you kind of go down the little AI rabbit hole and you kind of think, is that still going to be of benefit, or is that going to make things a lot worse? But I'm going to pause before I well and truly head down that rabbit hole, because it is an emerging field of fascination, I think.
One thing I definitely want to do, I'm looking to take care of a few things and get some secure some get some financial stuff, but I want to travel and I want to go meet up, and it's a good start to join. I've joined. I didn't become a member, but I visited. I don't know. I want to go back. They seem to take a break during. I think. Does your Toastmasters club in the UK or any clubs take a break during the summer?
That is a lot of the UK clubs do. I'm currently in a UK club, but I'm escaping because I don't I can't get on with them. The breaks is a very UK thing, whereas I like my 1 hour, get your buzz, get your toasty fix, get on with the rest of your day. So I definitely think my Toastmasters experience is very American. It has been since the beginning. So, but I definitely think traveling's good. I love going on adventures with my 9-year-old. So
travel and this one club that I saw in Rome, and I have someone's phone number from there too that I connected with them. They have an iPhone, so we can call via FaceTime, internet, and text via internet. And they summer's off, and then they go do whatever they want during the summer. Then they come back around September, and they start their season in September. And that's why I want to use Toastmasters as a way to because you have an in with the locals wherever you go with Toastmasters. You travel, find a Toastmasters club. There's the locals. They'll know the best places to eat and where to go. And
100%, 100%. And I think in a way it's amazing, for the US type of thing, that I'm in clubs over on the east, in the middle, and on the west. So if I ever rob a bank and have enough money to go to the US, I'm cool. I can have the best of Texas, DC, and Orange County. So I've got it covered.
The travel between, because US is covers bigger probably UK to US go from east to west, or DC to Texas. That's about well, I did that drive. At least I went to Virginia. We did a Virginia drive, and that was to get there was probably about 17 hours to drive.
That is nuts. And I think that's one of those other benefits that technology has been able to do for a lot of other Toastmasters is you get to meet people that you'd never get that contact with. You'd get to learn about places you would never get the chance to unless you go there and pay however much it costs to actually go to the US. And you become a lot more familiar with those communities. Like I've learned there's like Starbucks and like McDonald's everywhere, USA. And I think it's great. Technology can bring you so much closer culturally than 10, 20 years ago.
So this is so far. Usually I like in all my shows I like to, as I'm pulling up our next topic of question for this episode, I'm pulling it up right now as I speak. I usually like to either one of, this time we went to the other. I like to push the School of Greatness Lewis Howes, which is the inspiration for me starting this Keeping It Real podcast back in October 2017. But so far we pushed up and talked up a lot of Toastmasters and a lot of great things. Technology, Toastmasters, traveling, I love that traveling Toastmasters. So we've been pushing Toastmasters, which is great, a great thing. But I want to get into something that we also discussed that you brought up that you would like to talk about, and look away from my screen because I know look at the camera. But I have to look at away to get this set up.
You're fine.
And pull this up here. So it's this right here. So this topic that you wanted to bring up, what does it mean to be neurodivergent, from verywellmind.com?
So it's a good job I'm not in a Toastmasters meeting because I'd be absolutely rocking the ums and ahs in it. I always knew that I functioned really differently, with my brain going at 300 miles an hour all the time. There wouldn't be an off switch, and I'd always be super forgetful, and my brain was just like, why is this going like this? When you'd go on social media and you'd just be looking at all other people kind of going, okay, you're doing things really differently. So it was a good 2.5 years ago where I spoke to my local GP and I said, look, I think I have ADHD. And I definitely think there's still a lot of stereotype stigma around it because it's seen as that hyperactive boy in a classroom, loud, disruptive syndrome, you could say. Whereas now there's a lot of women being diagnosed a lot later in life, in their 30s and in their 40s. So I had to wait around 2.5 years to have the assessment, and then I got my diagnosis at the end of December last year. So for the last 5 months, it has been a deep dive journey to go, okay, what is out there to make my life a lot easier? Because as I've said to a lot of my colleagues, I've got this brain for the rest of my life. I can't all of a sudden go to the GP and go, don't want an ADHD brain, it's mine. So I'm using tech now to go, what can help me make my life a lot easier? What can help just manage the symptoms but allow me to equally be successful? Because I think when it comes to neurodiversity, there is still a lot of unknowns. A lot of people don't understand the ins and outs and what it's like to be neurodivergent. But as I've said to a lot of people, it's a superpower, which is quite cool to have. It's quite tiring to have ADHD, but it allows you to have that unique perspective on a lot of things. So that's the journey so far. I'm quite excited to see what I can achieve over the next 18 months whilst I finish my degree. Now that I'm starting to get a deeper understanding of a neurodivergent brain, because I think there's a lot of positives to it. There's equally some epic negatives, but staying on the positives is great. So
it's a superpower because that's even I wouldn't officially diagnose this. I don't plan to really because I mean I don't think because he's like I said it's more it would be more of a superpower anyway and but how when you mention ADD and I know there's one of two ways I feel one way but what is there's one where to my understanding, my experience, and not a doctor or not a anything. That's I'm just a video audio guy behind a microphone. So this is my expertise right here.
Pleasure.
What is to my understanding though? There's one lack of focus and then one.
So you've got.
Focus. Is it about focus?
There's a lot of different types of ADHD. So I have the combined type where I've got the hyperactivity, but I've got the, oh my God, I've forgotten. Impulse, that's it. So it can be quite annoying sometimes when you get the impulse, then you've just got to deal with it. Half of the time it's on the negative that I might want chocolate. So I'll just walk to the supermarket and get it. And I waste so much money because I feed my impulses. And it was kind of like when I randomly joined this Toastmaster club. Saw it online that they needed members to get them chartered. I was like, okay, that was impulse. But I think when it comes to the hyperactivity, oh my God, I can have so much energy. And I think a lot of people that have got to know me can see that I've got a lot of energy, but I think if people don't understand ADHD, they're a bit like, whoa, you're a bit overkill. But I think it's just that natural, you have the energy, you've got the extra passion, determination, and all of those things. It's just tiring when you hit those walls, because then you could be just flat for a few days. But I think it's just...
The crash is real. The crash.
Oh, God, the crash is painful. The crash is painful. It's sitting in front of the TV and just eat crap for a few days just so you recharge. But then you can get on with it. Like, sometimes when I've really let it be a power, I have achieved some epic things. Like, it was my second to last uni assignment. I got some feedback from a colleague and they were like, Nat, you need to change a few things, you need to change this and change that. And I was like, okay. Because I was trying to get a lot better with my academic grades. And this was the day before it was due. And I was like, I ain't going to have time in my working day. I was like, right, I'll wake up at 2:30 in the morning to give myself that time to get it done. And because of that hyperactivity, I was like, okay, I'll be awake. I knocked it out the park. By 8:30, I looked at my day and I was like, oh, wow, I have achieved a lot here. So it can be good, but when it comes to focus, it is a challenge. And sometimes I might be reading something and then my brain will be like, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And a lot of times I prefer to have things printed out. So I'll have things printed out on coloured paper because that helps me focus so much more than if it was on, say, white paper. So there's little things that can help. make it a lot easier. And I think one of the things that I've been doing with my maths is getting, have I got any, no, I haven't got any, but I'll explain with a post-it note. You might have your text there, and I'll just cover up bits that I don't need to see, so I'm able to focus. But that you can do without tech, but you can also do it with tech. On Microsoft Word, there is the function on the immersive reader of doing your line spacing. So it can block out all of your page, but then it can also help you if you wanted to just pay attention to one line. It'll only show you one line, 2 line, 3 to 4. So there's a lot of emerging tech appearing for people that have ADHD or autism on a lot of the Microsoft platforms, which I think is absolutely amazing.
You mentioned the different color papers, and you can do that with screens. Like there's a lot of color screen settings you can do where sometimes I'll change the screens and this is better on my eyes, and it can be better for focus, maybe bigger text. And I've noticed that a lot when I was back in school. It makes perfect sense now why, and it made perfect sense too before. Text, obviously, with the text bigger, I see my sheet of homework paper, and then someone else would have the same thing on it was orange, or it was like an orange sheet of paper, but a different color.
It makes so much sense, and I'm debating whether I'll write a Toastmaster speech about it, but I think there needs to be that further awareness around how something so simple can make such a big impact on people that think differently. Like, I was applying for something, won't explain what, but usually you call up and you say, I want to apply for X, and then they'll go, okay, we'll send it out in the post, it'll be two weeks. And in this scenario, they were like, have you got any other aids that you would like to make your life a lot easier? I was like, can I have it on coloured paper? They were like, yeah, sure, what colour? I was like, violet. I was expecting me, thinking, oh, it'll probably take the same time, because all you need to do is get your coloured paper, chuck it in the printer, Bob's your uncle. It took an extra 3 weeks for this application form to appear because I had got it on coloured paper. And I was there thinking, why? Why should that take extra time for something so simple that makes neurodivergent people able to get on with what they need to get on with? I just thought it is absolutely bonkers. But I think that the more awareness that there is around these simple aids that can help neurodivergent people get on with life, the better. So
I'm talking with a friend who this is a little bit of an amazing story, but he is on, just want to plug that because good friend of mine, audio friend, podcaster, he has a stutter. He has a podcast called My Stuttering Life, Pedro. And we talked about, I've been on his, and he's been on here before too. And he brings up that same point about with neurodivergent people, ADD, ADHD, hyperactive, and certain things, like you said, it took you put an application on different colored paper. It took an extra 3 weeks for the submission, or what, I forget the last word you said, an extra 3 weeks. And he's sitting here over describing a simple, I don't know, like drive-through line at a restaurant, fast food restaurant, and he has a stutter, and he's walking through, and a lot of times he'll be patient enough to say, FYI, just for your information, I would stutter. If you, I appreciate a little more patience, timing, understanding, whatever. And then there's certain things that, like the phone is not their friend. Stutter. So, and it just reminds me of that. Each one has their different thing. It's a superpower in their own as well, but certain things are just the crutch of, and it's like it's not your friend.
But I think it goes back. So I was having a conversation with one of my friends in the village, and I said, I think the problem that you've got with neurodiversity and in a way mental health issues, because you can't see them, a lot of people just write it off. If you break your leg or you break your arm, you physically can see it. But you kind of look in that scenario with the friend that you've just mentioned with the stammer, will look like a normal person, but they have that barrier to accessing life. What they have to work 10 times harder to be able to do the norm. And I think this is where technology can bring those people that have stammers, they're autistic, they've got ADHD together, because then we can then show the world, hang on a minute, yes, we look normal, yes, we have jobs, we're parents, whatever, but these are our barriers. Please give us that extra time so we can do what we need to do. Because half of the time, we'll equally be able to do it really good, and if not better, depending on that specific scenario.
When you're saying superpower, I want to go into like technology that is good, technology that can be a crutch, as we mentioned. What is, as a superpower, what is one thing you love about your ADHD? Is that what?
Yeah. So what's what I like about my ADHD? I can get a lot done. Like, I'm working full time. I'm doing a full-time degree, which is hard enough in itself. I'm a mum. Yeah, I'm able to equally be a really active Toastmaster, work on pathways, and just do a lot of good. So I think it's that, if you imagine your bucket of what can you do in a day, I think I've just got a deeper bucket, but I'm able to do a lot more. And I think there's a lot of benefits to it, but I think it is just that we've all got different brains, and I'm learning how to really make my brain help me achieve what I want to get out of life. Do you know what I mean? Like I said to somebody, I think it was over the weekend, I'm 5 years away from 40. Do you know what I mean? They're getting older. But I'm like, I'm 5 years away from 40. My son will be 18 in 2 months' time. I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to get to my 60s and my 70s and go, why didn't I do what I should have done when I was in my mid-30s? So I'm kind of looking at, cool, I've got an ADHD brain, bring it on. What can I get out of life? What can I do? So when I'm in my 60s and my 70s, I kind of look back and go, thank the Lord I didn't waste that opportunity I had to just get the most out of life. Because as we all keep going on, we've got this one life. We can't go, can we have another one? Because we can't. So I look at it and I kind of go, okay, I have ADHD. I've got a hyperactive brain. I struggle with my focus, but that's not going to stop me being able to be successful. So when I'm in my 70s and I kind of look back at my 30s, I can kind of go, okay, yes, I got my diagnosis a lot later than a lot of people, but it helped me achieve what I wanted to achieve from life.
It's amazing, and yet you make how a lot of things what people might see as a form of suffering or a reason to look down on something, instead of going that way. First of all, gratefulness, gratitude, grateful for the day, waking up. I'm up in beautiful morning, drinking my coffee, empty hand. Well, I had some coffee earlier. Be grateful. And how is this situation working for me? That's you put yourself in that mindset, and how can my current circumstances, my current situation work for me?
100%.
And you said exactly that.
100%. And I think when we go back to tech, there's a lot of other things out there to make life easier. Like, you can go on YouTube and just put in like ADHD focus music, and you'll find live streams of just music that can just make you feel so much more chilled out. Looking at, say, Outlook, for my work calendar, a lot of my colleagues are like, "Nat, you've got a little rainbow going on here." I will colour coordinate all of the different pieces of work that I'm doing of the different portfolios, just so I can kind of look at it visually and go, okay, I've got a lot of meetings this week, or I might have a lot of like children and family work to do this week. And because I am incredibly visual and I rely a lot on colour, I can see it. And a lot of people will just have one standard said blue as their calendar, whereas I've got my little rainbow because I can see it, and it helps me then look at the time that I have in my working day to go, okay, well, there's my gaps. I can have a bit of a brain break here, or I can go on my lunch there. So I think that it's a trial and error when it comes to tech, I think.
And that's the fun part. Tech, like it's not, it's fun when things work, but like the fun part is short story. And this is a speech. I gave it as probably a speech one time in Toastmasters, and back in college, and I'm doing it again in Toastmasters too. So this is the second time I'm that Sweet Tea. I got my nickname Sweet Tea in college. Was born in college. Sweet Tea is coming back in Toastmasters. I got that reputation by hanging out in the TV control room on college campus, playing with all the buttons, video switcher, audio board, video ingest. I was all over cameras in the studio. I was in there playing while everyone else was out drinking, partying. I was in the studio learning how that studio worked and troubleshooting, having fun. And now that's the real fun.
And I think it goes back to that societal thing that if you look at, say, teenagers today, you don't have to follow the crowd. Just because your bestie wants to go and get sloshed every Friday night doesn't mean you have to go and do the same. And I think now, because there's a lot of other opportunities out there for growth or for different experiences, go and do it. Because you think with a lot of tech, the skills that you have, if you wanted to have a career in the tech field, you've built that from that experience when you were in college to kind of go, this is something I really enjoy, that I'm really passionate about. Why not build on that? So I'm kind of like, kudos to you for not following that crowd, because I think sometimes society is like, no, you must follow. Whereas I kind of think rock the rebellious people to go, no, why should we do that? Why should we follow what everybody else is doing? Like, I go to church on a Sunday. A lot of people in their mid-30s don't go. Whereas I'm like, I don't care. I will be that different person, because why not? Because I kind of think if we were all the same, this world would be a boring place. Whereas you kind of think you need to have the lions out there that want to do something different, because I think it allows us to have these unique conversations where we can then go down further rabbit holes because we're different. Whereas if we were all the same people that would go to the pub on a Friday night, drink a beer and eat some crisps, we wouldn't be talking now. We would have had a conversation and we'd be bored.
Yeah, go back to that. Friend, he can go out. She can. They can go out and have fun. I'll be back around. Call me. I'll be your designated driver if you need help.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That can actually work for that.
Mm-hmm.
Stay behind. Call me if you need help.
True. It just makes for a better society. And I think going back to tech, this is where tech can empower those younger people to go, okay, you've got those like role models in their 30s and their 40s that are different. That then empowers those younger children to go, I'm not going to go out with my mates when I'm in college. I want to be that different person. So I think technology definitely helps spotlight for those next generations.
So a few questions. I want to continue. There's a lot of other stuff to talk about with this, sure, but we're getting close to wrap up point here, and I want to get into some and the questions I like to ask everyone, especially at the end. And I want to just ask: do you think to cover the isolation thing? But you think technology is making us more creative or less creative?
Definitely think a lot more creative. I look at Canva. Canva's cool. And I think because I have got such a creative mind, I can just go onto Canva and I can go, okay, what do I want to create? Like, staying with the creativity, a couple of years ago when I was VPO at MetroCrest, I was creating videos on Canva. So I was able to use tech, take all of the stuff out of my brain and actually make something from that. Whereas I kind of think back in the 90s and the noughties, you just have your pen and paper to be able to go creative. Whereas now there's those tools to really maximize on those creative minds.
Not as much media back then. You had magazines, you had biographies, dictionaries, or whatever that you can take text from. Now you have the internet at your fingertips. Canva, you can take screenshots, you can take images, download images, add them to a canvas.
Yep.
And everything, editing. I got into editing I think right after the dubbing process. I didn't experience that editing part before the technology. Now it's I got into it obviously after in the digital editing, but before you actually had to take a recording tape, and then there's another tape that you played. It was a playback tape, and then I don't know if you I've heard and I've seen this. I haven't really did much with it, but there's you played the tape and then you dub onto another tape.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to cue it up. You have to cue. It's all queuing up.
Yeah, and I think the thing with tech has emerged so much over the last 20 years. It was last year, went to a museum in London, and it was called Museum of Brands. And my 9-year-old was there, and there was a part on how technology had evolved. And there was this computer back from the 90s there. So a big bulky, brick-looking thing. And my daughter was like, was that the type of computer you had when you were little? I'm like, yes, it was. We had the bricks that you'd have to do the dial-up and all of those things. And it'd be the same thing with a video. When I was little and you wanted to watch a movie, you'd have that little black tape thing that you took into your TV and you'd play it. And I always remember the conversation with my daughter because she was like, what's this? I'm like, it's a video to be able to watch things on. And you kind of look now, you can just go onto Amazon or Netflix, stick in your title, and you can watch a 2-3 hour movie. So tech, from that entertainment perspective, oh my God, it has changed so much. But I think with that historical, makes us sound like flipping dinosaurs now. From that historical perspective, we still need to talk about how it's changed. Like, I remember when I was little, and you'd have your cassettes. So literally what you've just been saying, and you'd be there, and you'd sit your cassette in your cassette player, and it'd play, and then like you'd, if you were bored, pull the cassette tape out. Whereas kids now are like, what's this? They can just go to AI and go play X, Y, and Z. So from that entertainment perspective, do you know what I mean? From that entertainment perspective and music, oh wow, 20 years, 25 years, it has changed amazingly. But I still think we need to remember we've got to remember where we came from. We've got to remember what things were like. Like, you go back even later, when you had your records that you'd stick, your music could be on there and you'd go through a record player and all of that. But then that was the time where technology probably didn't exist as much. I would definitely say from the 90s onwards, it's emerged and it is emerging even more. But I kind of think we've got to be really mindful of where technology is going to take us as a society.
Yeah, and records you mentioned, they made a little bit of a comeback, but amazing. Like, you talk cassettes, and like, how do you put this into the car? I was like, oh, you just plug it in, and this is I play music in the car on this, or I'll patch it into the TV up here with my Apple TV, and I can watch phone videos on my TV. So this is the media player now, and it's the cassette, it's the phone, it's your information, the classifieds, newspaper. If you want to get the negative impacts of the news,
Where you go there.
We can go down that rabbit hole too.
No, we're not going down there. We're not going down there because we'll end up getting lost.
Yeah. And it's hard to come back from that. One last, speak of ums and ahs, Toastmasters. Thank you, Toastmasters, for letting me count my own ums and ahs.
I've definitely rocked it this morning.
Maybe I'll save that for now. We mentioned artificial intelligence, so I'll maybe save that for another day, different conversation. I think we covered a lot of these questions in our neurodivergence talk. So I think one more thing. Was there anything that we've forgotten? Anything that you want to bring up?
I think we've spoken about the positives to tech, but I think we've also spoken about that negative of technology, but flipping it on that population, generational impact. And I think the thing is, it's always emerging. There'll always be something that'll trend on TikTok that you'll kind of go, oh, I want to try this, or you want to try that. And I think it is that it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next 10 years with tech, to see where we are with society, but how it's actually beneficial to life, but equally whether it actually helps us as society. Because if it can help us a lot now and we get a lot out of tech, what else are we going to get out of it? So
what else so we can get? What's it gonna make? You can only predict so much. Like where I'm hearing every day the evolution of the Neuralink.
yeah.
That's coming probably a little faster and faster each day.
True.
But it leads me to, and one thing you brought up, you're looking 10 years in the future. It's a fun little question looking in the past, but it's a fun little question. What is something that you maybe you have now, a piece of technology that didn't exist back then? What is something that you would have liked to have back then that you have now that exists now?
I would say going back, I would say 20 years. I'm gonna make people laugh. Zoom's my baby, because you kind of think those connections and conversations that we can have now, it would have been amazing to have had those conversations 15, 20 years ago with those people in all of those different places. Because we've still been living life, we've just been siloed. Americans been chatting to all Americans, but it would have been amazing to have been able to chat to Americans, say in the 90s and the noughties and the decade that followed. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it has taken that global pandemic for us to really go, okay, we've got a problem here. What do we do? For that Zoom virtual world to really take off. But I definitely think it's brought us so much closer as people. But it would have been amazing to have seen it 15, 20 years ago.
Even if maybe you just had audio, and I know there was phones, and then there was long distance. That was brought up earlier in this conversation, like phones, long distance, and but the Zoom thing with the internet we have now, even if we didn't have enough bandwidth for video, it could have been audio, and we could have had those cost-efficient communication devices 10 years ago with just audio and not have to worry about racking up charges.
Gotcha.
But today, like, what is long distance?
There isn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was an active Toastmaster in a club in Australia for 3.5 years. You look at that distance. I'm in the UK.
India?
Yeah, exactly.
India too?
Do you know what
Australia,
I mean?
India?
All of those places that just seem so far away, technology makes it possible now. Like, one of my really good Toastmaster friends in Australia has now been elected as district director in District 49.
Where is that?
District 49's Hawaii.
Hawaii? Oh, yeah. Really? Hawaii?
Yeah. So she is using tech to absolutely prove that there is no boundaries now with the virtual world. As long as you can manipulate your time zones and you're willing to be sleep deprived, the technology in the virtual world can prove that you can be successful leaders and lead communities of people you would never have had the opportunity to have led 15, 20 years ago. So technology has some epic benefits. And I look at that specific scenario with my Toastmaster friend, And I'm excited to see what happens, because for me, as another remote leader, it empowers me to continue to kind of go, by borders, by over the pond. Let's work together. Yes, there's that time difference, but we're all here for that common agenda to be better people and to be better than we were the day before.
Yes. And so I was going to go for right before I wrapped up, and I'm forgetting in see, Australia, India. See if I can get it back real quick. Three final bonus questions here. And where can people find you, connect with you, to connect? Where you like to hang out the most? You Zoom or on the internet?
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Facebook and LinkedIn, and we'll get that linked up. Connect with Natalie Thomas. Over the pond, as it's not really much over the pond unless you can go and travel. I look to actually get over to London and the UK myself physically one day too. I definitely want to go do the European tour. So, internet without borders.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you're creating, pushing, that you want to like push out and talk, or I'd say plug. We like to like call it like a plug, but
I would say my plug is going to be Toastmaster related. Would be, if you have been a club president and you are looking to be an area director or even a division director, look in different country. Look at somewhere that is not local to you, because you get to gain so many different skills. You get to learn so much more about you as a person, you as a leader. You get to learn some different communication skills, and you get to have even more fun. I have been a remote leader for 4 years because I was remote from the beginning, and I have learned so much more about me, the world, people, how we communicate. So I would say, if you want to be an area director, look at a different part of the US. So if you're in middle, look over to the west, look over to the east, because a lot of districts are looking now for area directors. And I think if clubs are online or hybrid, you can visit these clubs. You don't have to physically get in your car and drive for hours. As long as you've got a Zoom or Teams link and you know what the time is depending on the time difference, you can make it happen. So there you go.
And that jogged my memory there. What you mentioned, the time difference, and if you said to the quote, kind of quote, your paraphrase a little bit. If you're willing to lose the sleep, well, you don't have to lose the sleep per se. If you can find another time on your calendar that you can fit maybe a little sleep time, and you can get to sleep in a different time, you can be flexible. This whole thing, going back to the ADD thing, it adds multiple calendars. I was just the other day scheduling this conversation with you, like this talk and this recording. I was looking on my calendar, and I noticed you can switch the time zone in my calendar, and I set it to UK. So I saw on UK time what my calendar looked like, and it was like, I'm eating breakfast at 4 or 7 p.m. according to the UK. So I see my calendar on UK time.
Mm.
And it's managing. One thing I like to say is getting in relationship with your calendar, and then getting in relationship with multiple calendars. And it's true
100%.
for if we're working with a team.
100%.
Wherever they're at.
True. So all good fun.
Good time difference. So find what, when, where possibly it could work for you, and get it done. Schedule it, write it down, and it gets done. Whatever gets written down, we talked about in our preview. Write it down. Take the physical pen to paper. Write it down, and it gets done.
Absolutely.
And then but the good thing about the digital calendar is it gives you those reminders. So some bonus questions. We plugged a lot of Toastmasters. I usually talk up the School of Greatness too, but this was Toastmasters heavy, which is perfect. And wrap up questions. Try and get out of here fairly quickly here with the wrap up, because I know you have things to do in your morning.
In my morning,
it's after midnight to me. But how can is this where I want to go? Comes to what are three lessons that you've learned through the years on technology? Three undeniable truths. The undeniable truths you observed about the impact of technology on our lives.
Three
truths.
Three truths. Bear with me 1 second, because for some unknown reason my phone wants to. All good.
Table topics.
Table topics. Woohoo! At 6:10 in the morning. Practice. It is like doing table topics. Practice. You are not going to be a pro with technology the first time you use it. Do you know what I mean? I have been on Teams and it's not worked, or my camera's been wrong, or whatever. Practice. And then I would say the second one, just because your bestie loves using a bit of software that might be cool doesn't mean you have to use the same thing. Like, I know there's a lot of buzz around TikTok. I don't care. I don't use it. Why should I? So I would say practice. You don't have to follow the crowd. And I would say the last one would be remember where you came from. Because you kind of think, when I become a granny one day and I'm having these conversations about tech, it's also teaching those children we didn't start in this position. We've had to have emerging technology that's been amazing, that's broken, that's had to be improved to be able to be where we are today. So practice, don't follow the crowd, and remember where we came from.
Love it. Great truths. So next up, I want to go from the truths to the main points to lessons or advice you have for people when learning to handle these powerful tools of technology and responsibly, mindfully. What are three lessons of advice that you'd have?
Ask questions.
Ooh.
But be in that safe environment to ask questions. I see so many people ask questions on big Facebook groups and they get absolutely annihilated. And I think this goes back to toasting. But if you've got a question, but you're in a Toastmasters meeting or a Toastmasters group or whatever, you're able to ask it with no judgment, with no funky stuff in the background. So I would say ask those questions, but be super mindful of where you ask them but also just see if it works. Just because 99.9% of the population want to use it doesn't mean you have to do it at the same time. So I would say those two things, ask those questions. And
what works for you?
Pretty much. Because I kind of look at it and I think a lot of people in their 30s and 40s, we learn old school tech when we were at school. We'd be like learning ICT of how to go on a brick computer, whereas we haven't been back to school to learn how to use modern tech. We've had to kind of go, how do we use it? What do we do? So I would say it's that culture.
Or ask your kids.
Oh God, the amount of times. Honestly, like sometimes I'll be using my tablet and my screen will freeze and I'm there trying to flick it to like make it work. And I'll turn around to my 9-year-old and I'm like, can you fix my tablet? And I'm there thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm asking my child to help me with tech. But it's just that funny thing of like, she knows how to do it. Like, she absolutely creases me up. She'll go onto her tablet and she'll know how to stream YouTube from her tablet to the TV. I'm like, how do you do that? Yeah, she's man, yeah, she can do it. So I think it's all of those, embrace the knowledge where we have it, but also empower those that can actually help the other people. So I'm empowering those children that know and have that skill set to actually help us adults kind of get on with it. Yes, it's quite funny because the 9-year-old is helping somebody in their 30s, but it's that principle of they're growing up in such a tech-focused world that they can teach us a lot of things that we don't know. And you kind of think children are the best teachers we have because they will say it as it is. They ain't going to waffle. They're going to go, this is how you do it. So.
See, is there, before I ask the final question, I'll just thank you for coming on today and talking about getting a little, just opening up a little bit about neurodivergence. Thank you for acknowledging, for stepping through the tough crashes at the end of the day sometimes. But I know it gives you have a lot of energy, and I don't think I got mentioned I talked about it in the pre-interview, but I'm the opposite. I can, like I told you this in the pre-interview, that I can focus on like multiple things at a time. So I have that extra focus. So I can maybe not as much energy. Although I'm getting more and more each day, but I can like listen here and hear the two different conversations and know what they're both saying and
That's
understand and probably participate in both.
That's a cool skill, but that also shows you how deep your listening skills are. That if you can focus on those two and actually really be able to pay attention, that is an epic skill to have.
And it drives other people around me crazy because how do you do that? Like, you can have music playing here and you're doing this. Like, that would drive me crazy. Some people tell me that would drive me crazy. But like, people are different. Some people work this way and others work a different way, and it's learning how to work with the way people work.
Absolutely.
So, and I'll get to the final question. Acknowledge you again. And final question: what is your definition of innovation?
What is my definition of innovation? Doing something differently that is out of the box, that is so out there, that would make a lot of people cringe, but actually works. And I think it's one of those things that it's not overly creative, but I would say my innovation is showing society that just because you're a single parent, you think differently, you've had mental health issues, doesn't mean you can't be successful. So my innovation is empowering other people who are very much like me to kind of go, no, we can be successful, we can have successful jobs. So there we go.
And realizing that it's a superpower that you have. Realizing the superpower. Love it.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you again.
No worries at all.
Maybe come back and talk about AI in the future next time.
Literally, when we've been down that rabbit hole.
Maybe an hour just for AI.
I think, honestly, you could probably fill an hour with AI. I honestly think you could. So, awesome. Thank you, Tommy.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. It's always a blast exploring the tech universe with you. But alas, it's time to wrap things up. If you've got burning tech questions or just want to say hello, remember you can reach out to us on our website, social media, or drop us an email. We love hearing from you. And if you found this episode as electrifying as we did, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us keep the tech goodness flowing. Don't forget to share Tech Time with Sweet Tea with your fellow techies. The more, the merrier, right? As we sign off today, always remember that tech is a tool and it's here to serve you. So use it wisely, explore fearlessly, and keep it real in your tech adventures. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep rocking the digital world. Catch you on the next episode of Tech Time with Sweet Tea.